What's up, dudes and dudettes? Um, I'm going to address a question that is very common. I see it and hear it all the time. I'm realizing that nowadays I want to move more towards doing video content and just providing it to you guys. I've come to a point in my career when I understand now that I guess looking at teaching from a position of abundance. There's so much knowledge out there that you can acquire or that I can give, that there always is going to be more knowledge, that if you come to class, you're still going to have more material to learn. I think a lot of people are in the mindset of scarcity where they don't want to give free material out to the internet. They say, well, if I'm good at doing it, why am I giving it away for free? While that has some validity, my main reason for not giving away the material for free is that it takes time. It takes time to make these videos. It takes time to just kind of process these thoughts and, kind of get in the right state of mind to be able to make a video. But I look at it as the less editing I can do, if I can just give you a raw conversation that you can benefit and you can gain this information. And it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be flashy, but you can learn a lot without having to, wait for scheduling to get out here. Or if you're in a part of the country where you can't get to one of my classes, that you can learn this stuff. And it's better that you learn this than that you don't learn this. Even if the outcome is the same, I don't make any money off you, right? So in other words, I'm able to make a living at this point. It's not about me making money. It's about me helping out you guys because you have questions and I'm able to answer them. All right, so this question is choosing a gun for home defense or for self-defense in general. In particular, I'm addressing the question of beginners looking to purchase their first gun. So many people, when they entertain the question about buying a gun, they're interested in purchasing a handgun, pistol. And why is that? This is really prevalent in my ladies, less so with the men, but still very common. And generally, if you're a beginner looking at a gun, oftentimes you think about a handgun. And I don't know why that is, but actually, let's explore that. Think about this. If you're a beginner, then what experience do you have? You would say, well, I don't have much experience. I've gone to the range a couple times with friends. I've watched a couple YouTube videos. I've played some video games. I've watched some movies. Therefore, I don't have experience, but that is actually wrong. You have experience. You have experience going out to the range with your friends. You have experience seeing in the movies and seeing the video games. You have experience watching YouTube videos and trying to do your own research online, such as what brought you to this video. That means that you do have experience, but what that experience is, it's not necessarily true. It's also not necessarily false. It's simply an experience that you have. And these biases develop subconsciously that you think one way or you think another way. And you may not understand why you think a certain way, but it's because, to summarize, a collection of all your life experiences up until now. So if you watch movies, for example, I want you to pay attention to the next action movie you watch, and you're going to see a trend. Good guys use handguns, bad guys use long guns. Why is that? Well, that gets a little bit into the history of what a handgun is and when we use it and why we use it, and what its pros and cons are. But suffice to say, let's back up a little bit. You're interested in purchasing a gun, and to you may have an assumption that all guns are kind of the same. It's just a matter of finding the gun that's right for you, that you like, that fits you. Those are actually not really important. It's not really important that it fits your hands necessarily. It's more important that it fits your needs. And you have to be honest and very realistic about what your needs are. So if you're going to buy your first gun, the first question is, am I going to carry this gun? That's a very important question. So the first question is, are you going to carry it? If you're going to carry it, obviously you need a gun which is small enough to carry. And that's going to be handguns, right? But if you're not going to carry the gun, then the question should be, well, if I'm not going to carry the gun, then what's the appropriate gun? In other words, what are my needs? What am I going to be doing with this gun? So then you have to ask yourself, what is my budget? If your budget is low and you're going to be using this gun for home defense or self-defense in and around the home, and it's a kind of a dedicated tool like a fire extinguisher, then you don't need to spend much money on this. A shotgun will be very effective for a relatively small amount of money, and they're also very simple and very easy to train on. They can be very safe, they're very potent, as in very powerful, and they're easy to use, very simple under stress. They don't require a whole lot of training. They do require training, but not as much. It's just more intuitive, okay? So a shotgun, if you're on a budget, for a home defense gun is very effective. Now, then the next question is, do you want to do more than just home defense? Do you want to do more than just having the gun like a fire extinguisher? Do you want to use it as a sporting implement that you're going to go out there and hunt with, or target shoot with, or take classes with, or get into the lifestyle of the martial art of the modern weapon craft, such as what we offer in our in-person classes? Then you might wonder, well, maybe a rifle is appropriate for me, and that may be true, but understand that rifles, they're easy to use like shotguns. Physically speaking, they're not difficult to use, but they require a good amount more knowledge. They require a good amount more problem solving up here and ability to understand the tool up here. All right, so to summarize a few things, shotguns require instinct, and that's about it. It's kind of like swinging a tennis racket. Like, you don't need a whole lot of knowledge to swing a tennis racket. All you got to do is develop a hand-eye coordination. Ball's coming, swing the racket. Handguns require a lot of training, because handguns, when you use them, they're very counterintuitive. Your body is trying to tell you one thing to try and keep you safe and protect you from your own gun. Your body thinks that your gun is a danger to you, and therefore it's going to cause you to make movements which are actually not in your best interest. There are subconscious movements to push the gun away, to reject the gun, or to move in certain ways that cause you to unconsciously do dangerous things with the gun. So handguns are very counterintuitive, and they require a lot of training, because we need to counteract, we need to override some of those natural instincts that your body is trying to do to protect you. Now, rifles require a lot of knowledge, right? So rifles require technical expertise. In other words, knowing how to calibrate the rifle or to zero it, knowing what it does, how it does it, what type of ammunition it uses, how to install the optics and sights, how to clean it, how to take it apart. There's just more parts and more pieces, and they're more complex and more capable machines, but they're still, they require more knowledge. So knowledge, fortunately, can be gained for the most part by reading and by self-study, but there's some types of training that you just can't get by doing it online. And that's really where we come into play, or a school such as Monarch Defense or your local firearms training school. All right, so now we've broken down to the broad three categories, which are handguns, rifles, and shotguns. If you're looking to buy a gun brand new, you're going to be looking at these three categories. Now, handguns further break down into two types, which are revolvers and pistols. Obviously, revolvers, they go in a circle and they revolve. They're very simple. They are advantageous because they're intuitive. So just to be clear, revolvers and pistols work the same way. They do the same job, even though they work different ways. It's kind of like a manual transmission versus an automatic transmission. One requires more inputs and more work, but theoretically it can give you, good performance. One requires theoretically less performance, but it's more complex, and it actually, if it has something wrong with it, they're harder to maintain, hard to fix. Not a perfect analogy, but it gets you an idea that pistols and revolvers do the same job. And so from the standpoint of a gun in self-defense, to us, they're the same. Now, obviously, you have to learn the pros and cons. You have to learn how to push the buttons. But when you shoot them, you aim them, you be safe with them, it's all the same stuff. It's just they have a different loading procedure. Honestly, that's all. Now, moving forward, so to summarize earlier, handguns, you buy a handgun if you have made a decision that you're going to carry this gun. What if you're not going to carry the gun? Then, in my humble opinion, you do not buy a handgun, and a handgun is a very terrible choice for a first gun if you're not going to carry it. Well, why would you, you're fighting me on this in your mind. I can tell already, and I haven't met you, but because I've worked with so many thousands of students over the years, I can already tell that in your mind, you're starting to fight me on this. And the reason is, go back to that set of experiences or assumptions or misconceptions or preconceived notions that you hold. You have watched movies, you have played video games, you have watched YouTube videos or whatever, you've gone to the range with your friends, and to you perceive that the handgun is just good enough and it's a quality gun, and you can see, Jack Reacher and John Wick and, all these other protagonists, they use handguns. Why is it that you can't use a handgun? Because in your story, you're the protagonist, obviously. First of all, you have to understand the primary role of the handgun. And I'm going to ruffle some feathers here. The handgun is a rifle. Can we agree? Okay, handgun is a rifle. So let's look at a handgun here. We have a handgun in its assembly, which is important that I show you the holster with the handgun. This is just one type of handgun. Of course, this has been around for a very long time, 100 years. Let's clear it. Okay, here we have our magazine. Cool. So there's our unloading procedure. Now, if we look at this handgun has a barrel, and inside this barrel is rifling, okay? So if you don't know what rifling is, you can study that on your own for a bit. But very simply, it is a precision instrument that has a spin stabilized projectile that you can, to a high degree of precision, high degree of consistency, you can predict where the bullet will go every time you fire it. But that means on the converse side, you must predict, you must aim the gun every time you fire it. And if you don't properly aim, or you fail to properly aim, then you're not going to succeed. So handguns are characterized by being very difficult to use. And these are I'm challenging some assumptions here. We're going to bust some myths. A lot of people think the handgun is easier to use because it's smaller. That is completely wrong. Handguns are more difficult to use because they are smaller. They are, fundamentally speaking, rifles. They work exactly the same way as any rifle, but they are smaller. Therefore, they are more difficult to handle. They're weaker. They have a shorter sight radius, so they're harder to aim accurately. They hold less ammunition. They jump more under recoil. They move more under recoil. Did I mention they're weaker? So how much weaker? If we look at typical figures, or rough numbers on the potency of a handgun round, or the ability to cause effective wounds in a violent attacker, if you shoot somebody with a handgun, we're looking at to correlate the potency of the wound with death rates. Okay, so we're going to draw a correlation, which is not a causation. We're going to draw a correlation. People who are shot by handguns, generally speaking, don't die. In fact, generally speaking, they only die about 10% of the time, a very low percentage of time. And this is very different from what you may have seen in the movies or the video games. Remember, anytime you've seen it in popular culture, movies, video games, whatever, that's all scripted, it's all drama, it's all fake, it's all made up by somebody, and that somebody may not necessarily know exactly what they're talking about. All right. So now we have handguns, which are quite weak. They're difficult to use. The other thing is, because they're attached to the end of your wrist, and we look at things and we move our hands to face whatever we look at. So when you look at, who do you look at most often? You look at your spouse, you look at your kids, you look at your coworkers, your family members, you look at your gun instructor, you look at your friends. These are the people you look at, and if you're not careful, without any special training, your inclination is to take your hands with you when you look at them. Therefore, it's highly likely that you end up pointing the gun at yourself or your friends or your family members. And again, these are things that happen on a subconscious level. You don't even know that this is happening. And so when you come to training, one of the most valuable things in training is, the whistle. When we blow that whistle, it's for kind of getting you to snap out of that when you're doing unconscious, unsafe behavior, and I snap you out of that so that you are aware suddenly that you're being unsafe, because it's happening on such an instinctual level that you don't even know it's happening. So having the handgun leads you to, without dedicating a lot of time for training, leads you into this situation where you're going to do things instinctively. You're going to do things which feel natural, such as leaving your finger on the trigger and pointing it at whatever you're looking at. That could be yourself, that could be your friends, it could be your whatever. Okay, so handguns, I think we have got enough on that. Primary specialization is that they're small and they can be carried. Fundamentally speaking, they're rifles, therefore they work the same exact way, but they're inherently inferior for all reasons, other than their size. So then if we talk about rifles versus shotguns, right? Rifles are more expensive. Let's start with that. So a rifle is typically 3 or 4 times more expensive than a shotgun. A typical shotgun these days, a mass production pump action gun for self-defense, such as Mossberg 500 or Remington 870, that might be $300, $400, $500 for a nice one, for a fancy like semi-automatic shotgun. They're not expensive as far as guns go. Training time, I can bring someone up to a very good level of proficiency in about 1 day of training. So about 8 or 10 hours of training, you can get to a very fluent level. You would understand the gun, you understand how to load, unload it, how to be safe with it, you understand how to aim it, shoulder it, shoot it. You understand the recoil dynamics and how it affects your body, and you have a pretty good understanding what your buckshot will do and how to pattern your buckshot. That can be done in 1 day. On the other hand, let's compare it to a rifle. I would say rifles, to get fully fluent on average self-defense style rifle type skill set, would take about 3 to 4 days. And of course, rifles are significantly more capable than what we're talking about. So to master those extra capacity, we would need more time on it, to the extent of going to several months or several years of practice and training on it. But you can get the basics down in about 3 days. Now, handguns, because they're more complicated, because they're more difficult, because they're more limited in what they're capable of, in order to be fluent and safe and effective, combat effective, self-defense effective, and also because handguns, we address more variety of circumstances. If you're going to try and solve those problems successfully under that kind of stress, of life and death emergency, I would say, be honest with yourself. Even with a skilled teacher leading you, it might take you about 5 days to get there, to the point where you're able to be independent and you're able to operate fluently and practice safely to continue your growth without, a lot of supervision, right? So understand that handguns are something which are counterintuitive. They require a lot of training, okay? So your first question, back to our basic question here, what gun do I buy? Number one, am I going to carry it? Yes, look at a handgun. It's up to you, revolver or pistol. We're not going to get into that conversation right now. The second question is, if you're not going to carry it, are you just using it for home defense? If so, a rifle or shotgun will both work, but a shotgun is going to be cheaper and simpler. If you're going to use it for other things, such as sporting, target shooting, tactical training, going to the shooting range and practicing your marksmanship and stuff, then a rifle is probably going to be more interesting. There's more to do with a rifle. They're more complex, where shotguns are fairly primitive devices. So you might choose a rifle, and then you might be looking at things like AR-15s. The Kalashnikov series rifles are very good at this. Mini 14s, Kel-Tecs, SU-16, Kel-Tec, some of the bullpup model Kel-Tecs. There's many, many good rifles out there. That I'm not going to get into detail on specifics today, because to me, honestly, they're all the same. So now, if we are looking at rifles, they can get from $600 for a cheap one up to $3,000 for an expensive one. I would say keep it simple. Don't get too out of the box with this. You don't have to be so unique and exotic and stuff. If it's got extra, blue and silver and gold and red adornments on it, like, it's not worth your money, right? Keep it simple, keep it factory stock, keep it mil spec, Mini 14s, AK-47s, AK-74s, AR-15s. Try to keep it simple. Don't bolt on all kinds of crap on them, right? You need a good set of magazines. You need a good set of iron sights, maybe a red dot if you want. You need some training. Maybe you need a white light, and maybe you need a sling. That's it. You don't need to get complicated about it. So rifles are very capable if you understand how to use them, but different from shotguns, right? Shotguns, you pretty much just point and look at your target, shoot it. As long as it's attached to your face, you can hit it. Rifles, though, you need to know how to calibrate it properly. You need to know how to feed it the right type of ammunition to get it to do what you want it to do. You need to know how to hold and manage recoil and place your shots effectively using what we call holdovers and hold unders. You need to know how to work the safety fluently, so that way you don't even have to think about it. And this is all done in training, which you can't get by watching YouTube videos. So let's summarize. Handguns, we talked about those already. Long guns, if you want to keep it simple, you want to keep it inexpensive, shotgun is your way to go. You can get by with a day of training or so, and that should be plenty. Understand how to pattern, understand how to control recoil, understand how to load, unload, and work the safety safely, you're good. Rifles, if you want to get into it, a lot of our people these days that want to get into tactical training, they're really kind of geeky about rifles, which is fine, but be cautious because they can get really expensive. And you can get carried away bolting on unnecessary crap onto your rifle, so keep it simple, right? I would rather you have a plain rifle that has nothing but iron sights rather than bolt on all kinds of crap. And if it's bolted on incorrectly, or it's not zeroed properly, or it's a poor quality, a low quality accessory, that accessory is going to cause you to cause that weapon system to fail, right? So let's say you buy like a $600 AR-15, a basic entry-level AR-15, probably going to be just fine. Now you take the AR-15, you put on a $40 red dot. Well, that $40, made in China red dot is probably going to fail you as soon as you need it. And on that note, I've seen brand new Aimpoint or EOTechs fail also, and these are $500, $600 optics. I've seen those fail right out of the box. So if you know anything about me, I'm a big fan of keep it simple, keep it plain, keep it functional, and a good set of iron sights are not going to fail you. Right? So there's people out there who are going to tell you, oh, you should buy this is better than that, and the iron sights are out of date. That's fine. If you want to spend time and spend money and you want to research this and you want to make sure that you've got it perfectly dialed and perfectly assembled and perfectly put on, great. But to be honest, if you have a good, reliable, durable set of iron sights, it will serve you well, and it will do most of what you need it to do as far as hitting bad guys at moderate to realistic self-defense distances, either in the house or down the street. So I think let's sum up this video. You've been very patient with me. You've asked a lot of good questions. If I'm going to buy a first gun, check your assumptions. Your assumptions are tied to your past experience. Your past experience is born from, social media or movies and video games, right? Be careful of that. Handguns are weak, handguns are difficult to use, handguns are fundamentally rifles, they're just inferior. Use a handgun only if you're going to carry the gun, and we can talk about that, and we can make more videos about carrying guns. Now, that's the niche for handguns. If you're not in that niche, you're talking about defense of self inside the home, then you can look at rifles and shotguns. When we talk about rifles, I'm referring to small, compact, relatively low-powered, high rate of fire rifles, what you call carbines, or what the media will call assault weapons. This is really what we're referring to. Semi-automatic, high rate of fire, low recoil, easy to control, light and short, very compact, very, very maneuverable. And so that's kind of where the state of the art is for our purposes today as a general purpose firearm, defensive use firearm, offensive use, sporting use firearm. A lightweight, small rifle is probably going to be your best overall choice. And again, that could be an AR-15 or any similar rifle like that. Now, regarding shotguns, simple, powerful, easy to use, very intuitive, good choice if that's all you care for. You don't really want to get geeky about it. You just want to have a functional firearm for self-defense purposes. Go ahead. There's nothing wrong with the shotgun, and in fact, they're very satisfying to shoot. They're very satisfying to train on. So, if you have any other questions, post in the comment field below. You can find us at markdefense.org for your classes. Well, primarily, I'm basing out of the Bay Area in California these days. But we do have classes on the road in Texas, Florida, and other places. So take care of yourself. Happy New Year, and I'll see you in class.